From the Land Grant University in Urbana-Champaign, Illinois, this is the Closing Market Report. It is the 17th day of June, 2026. I'm Extension's Todd Gleason. Coming up, we'll talk about the commodity markets with Greg Johnson from TGM, that's Total Grain Marketing. We'll hear from President Donald Trump, who this morning hedged just a little bit as it's related to the signing of the MOU with Iran. And then we'll turn our attention to the weather forecast, too. Drew Lerner will be here from World Weather Incorporated on this Wednesday edition of the Closing Market Report from Illinois Public Media.
Todd Gleason services are made available to WILL by University of Illinois Extension.
July corn for the day settled at $4.21, up 7 1/4. September at $4.29 1/2, 7 higher, and December 6 1/4 higher. Settlement price there at $4.48 3/4. July beans 11.32, up 2. August 11.36 3/4, 2 higher, and November soybeans 11.49 1/4, up 2 3/4. Bean meal unchanged on the day. Bean oil down $1.38. Wheat futures up 16 3/4, and the soft red July at 6.12 3/4. The hard red July at 6.53 1/2. 18 3/4 higher. Greg Johnson from TGM, that's Total Grain Marketing, the elevator right here in Champaign County, now joins us to take a look at the marketplace. Hello, Greg. Thanks for being with us. Hope you had some great time off.
Yes, had an excellent time. Glad to be back, though.
I bet you are, and you walked right into the buzzsaw again. The markets are always moving. You missed a couple of weeks that were really interesting. I suppose you watched from afar. What do you think of those last 2 weeks?
Well, we had rain across most of the Midwest, so the crops are developing at a average pace, or average rate. I don't know that I would call it an above average crop, but it's certainly not below average or not greatly below average. It looks like we're off to a decent start. And obviously the weather in July and August will tell the tale, but nothing bullish from the weather concerns at this point. And with more rain in the forecast this week, next week, and the following week, it's not likely that the traders get excited about weather prospects as far as a weather rally is concerned just quite yet. That'll happen in July and August if it's going to happen at all. So then we go back to trading other things other than weather. And we've got an acreage report out on June 30th. And one of the private analysts has increased his estimate for acres of corn, beans, cotton, and wheat. We're going to plant more of everything than what we did, according to the government intended to plant in the March estimates. So that's not friendly either. So the funds, and now we've got the agreement, the memo of understanding for a potential agreement in the Middle East. And so oil prices are going down, and so that's pressuring ethanol, which is pressuring corn. And so all those things taken together, I think, have got the funds, which were extremely long and probably got out a little bit over their skis. They've sold off, and probably when the numbers come out on Friday, it'll show us that the funds have liquidated their entire long position of corn. They're still long soybeans and soybean oil, but not as much as what they were. They've dramatically pared that back. So the bottom line is, I think the funds have been big sellers of commodities, and not just ags, but energies and metals as well. So it's just been a complete sell-off in the commodity groups, and we've seen corn drop 70 cents from when I left to when I got back, and we've gained 10 cents of that back here just in the last few days. And beans lost $1.20, and they've gained back about 15 to 20 cents of that. So we've got a lot of repair work to do, but we've done a lot of damage to the charts. And like I say, until we get something fundamentally friendly, I'm not sure what's going to cause the funds to come back in and buy something. So we may be sideways to slightly higher here over the next week or two until we get some more fundamental news.
The listeners will approve that you do not go on vacation or away from the office again for some time.
I've been told that from several producers that I can never go on vacation again.
So when they're asking that question, though, really what they want to know, I have whatever I've got sold, but certainly 70 cents higher would be better. Now the problem is I'm looking at a good crop. What kind of bounce can I expect? How do things play out through the fall? Clearly you're thinking sideways, maybe to higher. If they're far enough behind on their marketing, do they still need to look at pricing something out, or are you confident that we can manage through some of this and look for a higher price later?
I think we have to lower our expectations to maybe some more realistic type levels. I don't know that we can expect the funds to establish as long of positions as what they did a month or two ago. So a 70-cent loss, maybe we can gain 25 to 35% of that back. That would be a third to a half of what we lost in the corn. Soybeans, if we lost $1.20, maybe we can gain back 45 to 60 cents of that. Again, a third to a half of what we lost. That's typical technical trading strategy. Whatever we lose, we try to gain back, retrace a third of for sure. And under the right circumstances, maybe we can retrace half of what we lost. So those are kind of the objectives, depending on where farmers are sold. But certainly that first level that I would encourage people to put offers in is a one-third retracement of what we've lost.
As you're thinking about soybean, what kind of expectations do you have?
On new crop, most of the old crop beans are already sold, so let's talk new crop. November beans lost 80 cents. They went from 12.10 down to 11.30. They're trading around 11.50 today. So we've gained back 20 of the 80, and I would think we could gain back, another 30. That would be 50 cents of that 80-cent move. So that would be roughly half, a little over half. So 11.80, 11.90, somewhere in there. I don't know that we need to see $12 beans. Especially if that acreage report comes out with more bean acres. It's going to take a weather problem, and with beans, we may not need a weather problem until August, or we may not see one until August. Corn, July will be critical for pollination period, but the beans can probably hold off a little bit longer. So to see a substantial rally in beans, it may take until August before we see much of a rally in soybeans.
Has there been very much or any indication that the Chinese have actually come in and made purchases?
No, there's been rumors of that the last several days, but I think those rumors are based on the fact that the soybean basis in Brazil has increased to the point where our U.S. beans are now competitive without the tariff. But if the tariff is still on, that 10% tariff obviously makes our beans more expensive. So the commercial Chinese companies will still buy beans from Brazil. The government could buy the beans from U.S. Without the tariff, is my understanding. So we're getting close. But I don't know that China has really, maybe they're kicking the tires. But I think at this point that's all they're doing. I don't think we have any definite reason to think that they are buying beans. They're still buying beans from South America because those beans are a little cheaper. And like I said, granted, with the higher basis levels down there, we are more competitive. We're getting close, but nothing's been done officially yet.
Is domestic consumption in the United States for new crop enough to be a maintenance level where we are today?
Probably. It probably is. The farmers are going to be tight holders of beans, and with all these requirements for mandatory renewable biodiesel, these crush plants are going to need soybeans, and so the board's either going to have to go up or the basis is going to have to go up to encourage those beans to move. But obviously, that's still not going to be enough. We still need to export a decent amount of beans, so we really do need China to come back in and start buying beans at some point in time. That's really the only thing that would really get us out of these doldrums.
Hey, thank you much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Todd.
Greg Johnson is with TGM. That's TotalGrainMarketing.com at the elevator right here in Champaign County. Speaking of Champaign County, next Thursday, if you're in the area, you should come out to the South Farms for the University of Illinois Weeds Field Day with Aaron Hager. All the details on that are online right now at WILLAG.org. This morning, U.S. President Donald Trump held a press conference during which he was asked how confident he might be that the MOU signing ceremony will take place this Friday in Switzerland. He demurred, and the price of crude oil jumped $3 a barrel for a few minutes before dropping back down. Here's the exchange and the president's answer.
How confident are you that this Friday signing will happen?
You're talking about this one on the deal? Deals are amazing. I've done them all my life. I've gone into deals that were 100% and they don't happen. I've gone into deals that there was no chance of getting them done, and it happens, and they happen easily. So you never know with deals, do you? But you're going to find out pretty soon. I think it'll be done. They want to sign. They want to get back to a normal life. You know, we hit them very hard. Don't forget, you know, people talk about when this started. This didn't start 3-4 months ago. This started years ago when I took out Soleimani. That was a big event. There are those that say it was the biggest event in the Middle East in 50 years. So we took him out, and they became a much different country. And then I terminated the JCPOA, that's Barack Hussein Obama's horrible deal, that gave them a nuclear weapon. And I terminated it, and I stopped it. And then I stopped it a second time with the B-2 bombers. And these are all major events in the history of the world, in my opinion, because it prevented them from having a nuclear weapon. And now we're going to do it again, and we're going to see how it works out. So this is a memorandum of understanding, but it's a very strong one. This isn't just like a 2-paragraph. This is a long, pretty detailed memorandum that goes into a regular contract. I would think they would do it. If they don't, then that's okay. We'll have to start the process again. And we don't lose. We have the greatest military in the world. We have the greatest blockade. The naval blockade was 100% effective. And again, they have no Navy, they have no Air Force, all bombed down. I don't want to say the leaders, but first level of leader, gone. Second level of leaders, gone. Some of the third level of leaders, gone. And they want to make a deal. They are so ready to make a deal.
That was President Donald Trump from this morning. In the press conference, he muddied the waters related to any deal with Iran. However, White House officials have confirmed President Trump, Vice President Vance, and the Speaker of the Iranian Parliament digitally signed the MOU last Sunday. In today's agricultural news, it may be that a years-long campaign for higher ethanol fuel is facing a now or never moment in the Senate. Chuck Grassley from Iowa gave that stark scenario for E15, the gasoline blend that's 15% corn-based ethanol, in a conference call with reporters as lawmakers search for a legislative path to lift summertime restrictions on its sale. The opportunities are narrowing for Grassley and other E15 advocates who say they're on the cusp of the long-sought goal. Officials in Texas are expanding efforts to contain an outbreak of the New World screwworm. Texas state animal health authorities confirmed 11 cases involving cattle and other livestock. The total number of cases, though, is up to 12. That includes the confirmed case in New Mexico. The growing number of cases, of course, has raised concerns among ranchers in Texas that the parasitic fly could spread farther north into major cattle-producing regions. Producers say the outbreak is especially troubling as confirmed cases move closer to the Dallas area. Well, the farm credit system remains financially strong, this despite growing stress in parts of the farm economy. That according to the Farm Credit Administration Board. As of March 31, the system reported stable earnings and increased capital levels. Total capital reached $86.4 billion, up 7.3% from last year. That leaves the nation's largest agricultural lender well positioned to meet the borrowing needs of farmers and ranchers across the United States. The report also noted growing economic challenges, though, including higher energy cost and inflation tied to the conflict in the Middle East. Despite expectations for lower net farm income in 2026, farm finances continue to benefit from federal support programs in the United States. Elsewhere across the planet, farmers aren't faring quite as well. This is the case in Brazil, where financial stress is mounting in the farm sector there as auctions of creditor-seized farmland continue to climb. This according to data compiled by Reuters. Rising debt troubles are forcing farmers in Brazil into bankruptcy and loan defaults. Lower grain prices, higher interest rates, rising input costs, and weather-related crop losses have combined to squeeze farm profitability across the country. Problem loans now account for nearly 20% of outstanding farm credit, up from just 5.5% 2 years ago. And that's a look at today's agricultural news. Let's take a look at the weather forecast for the growing regions across the planet. We're now joined by Drew Lerner. He is at World Weather Incorporated in Kansas. Thank you again for joining us today. I appreciate that, Drew. Tell me about the rainfall and the cold or cool weather we've been having in the United States and what impact you think it's having on crops across the Corn Belt and, of course, the wheat harvest as well.
Yeah, we are certainly seeing an active weather pattern. I think everyone already knows that. The biggest issue that I see coming up in the near term isn't so much for crops as much as it is for us humans, just because with all the moisture that we've got on the ground and in the ground, when it does turn warmer, it's going to get ugly out there. We're going to be able to cut through the humidity with knives and it's going to be uncomfortable. But from a crop development perspective, I think the majority, the Midwest, the Delta, southeastern states to some degree, and parts of the plains are doing fairly well. Now, we have a lot of pockets that are either too wet or still kind of teetering a little bit on being a little dry. Some of the flooding in Missouri has been certainly crazy bad, and we're going to see more heavy rain there before the next week is over. There's some places across other areas in the Midwest that are definitely pushing that limit as well, with river and stream flows in flood stage in some cases. And of course, we got that crazy tropical event down along the Gulf Coast that's going to produce flooding rain in Alabama, maybe parts of Louisiana too, as we go forward with the next few days. You mentioned the cool temperatures. That's certainly been pleasant for human living, but it is slowing down the crop development rate in some cases. Nighttime lows in the northern plains and upper Midwest are 40s and 50s right now. That's really not very good for corn and soybeans. And that will continue through the weekend and into early next week. So we're probably losing a little degree day accumulation, slowing the crop development rate down a little bit, and definitely slowing the drying rates down. So that's all adding into the frequent precipitation pattern we're seeing. So, this is okay for now, but boy, we got to turn the channel here and come up with something that's a little bit more appealing for crop development. I think you will see that evolve as we get into the final days of June and into early July. We should have a nice punch of warmer weather, at least in the western Corn Belt and plains. The eastern Midwest may continue to have some milder conditions. And while we're talking about the coolness, Canada is also suffering from that. The crop development rates are really behind in some areas in the eastern prairies in particular. And there's some concern building that some of these crops that were planted late may not be fully mature when we get into the frost season in early September. And I think that needs to be closely monitored.
Cool here, but the heat has been on in France in a couple of ways, the G7 conference taking place, but it's really about the weather for the two of us. Is it still hot, and do you expect that to continue?
Yeah, it actually is just now building up into the peak of the heat wave. We're slowly getting there. Ridginess has been building. I looked at some data yesterday, and France has seen less than half of normal rainfall since mid-March. And the last 30 days, about 2/3 of the country has had less than 25% of normal rain. Now, the temperatures in this most recent 30 days have not been that far off from normal. So there have been some cool days and a few hot days, but not many. But we are building a ridge over western parts of Europe right now, and it will peak this weekend into early next week. Temperatures in the 90s, upper 80s as well will be common. In France, even some extremes getting slightly over 100 will be possible. The UK will probably see some temperatures in the lower 90s, and Germany will get into some 90s as well. But it's France that already has that dry bias. A lot of the winter crops are pretty seriously stressed at the moment, but when you look at the vegetative health index, comparing it last year, only about half of the country is in worse shape than it was a year ago. So we are moving in a negative direction, but I don't think the wheat and rapeseed are going to come up very seriously impacted. Now, spring and summer crops is a totally different story. We've got 10 days to 2 weeks of dry weather still in front of us and perhaps more. So France definitely needs to be closely monitored from that perspective.
And the impact of El Nino in places like Indonesia, if I remember correctly, that's pretty strong.
Yes, it is. And when we get into the latter part of the third quarter and the fourth quarter of this calendar year, you're going to see quite a bit of dryness there. Today, the moisture profile is really very good in Indonesia, Malaysia, and fair in parts of the Philippines. But as El Nino becomes more dominating in the atmosphere, you'll see the rainfall decreasing in Indonesia and Malaysia. This should begin in about 10 days to 2 weeks, and will become more dominating in that latter part of the year. So by the time we get to the fourth quarter, there will be a lot of dryness, not only in Indonesia and Malaysia, but probably in parts of the Philippines and the mainland areas of Southeast Asia as well. So that is something that needs to be closely monitored too, again, from a rice and sugarcane perspective, and for that matter, oil palm and just about any other crop you can think of. They will all be impacted to some degree.
And lastly, could you take a look at Asia for me? Start in the northeastern growing regions of China. That's mostly corn country. Work your way southward where the El Nino has more of an impact.
Yeah, northeastern China is doing very well. They're seeing frequent showers and thunderstorms, much like the U.S. It may get just a little bit wet there too, but I think they will see a favorable mix in the long run. The temperatures have been warmer biased until just recently. Now they're more seasonable, and I think we'll probably stay in that range for the next 10 days to 2 weeks. So most of the main corn, soybean areas in the Northeast are going to be okay, along with spring wheat and sugar beets. For east central China, this would be between the Yellow and Yangtze rivers. There's been some drying that's taken place. It looks like they're going to turn the corner and start getting some timely rain, though, next week. So I don't think that's going to be much of an issue. But when you get down to areas south of the Yangtze River, which will be, the southern 1/3 of the country, there's a lot of rice in that area, a lot of sugarcane, and a little bit of corn, a little bit of soybeans. But anyway, the bottom line is they are getting clobbered with all kinds of rain, and the ground is saturated down to about 3 feet in some places, and it's going to continue to rain frequently. When you take a look at aggressive developing El Nino years, they are almost always wet on a month-by-month basis in southern China all the way into the end of the year. So if that is the case, rice production in China could end up being a little bit of a concern.
Hey, thank you much. I appreciate it.
You bet. Have a great day.
You too. Drew Lerner is with World Weather Incorporated in Kansas City. Joined us on this Wednesday edition of the Closing Market Report. Came to you from Illinois Public Media. It is public radio for the farming world, online, on demand at WILLAG.org. I'm Extension's Todd Gleason.